Good afternoon, Treasury Talent community. This is Joe Grabowski with Treasury Talent. Today, Simon, Scotty, and I are joined by Geri Maroney from Lean Up. Geri, how are you? Thanks for joining.
I'm good. Thank you very much. This will be fun.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to a good conversation today. I think as we talked about, we'll go through your career as a practitioner. Then we'll get into a little bit around your experience with networking and relationships, and then we'll talk to you a little bit about what you have going on in Lean Up.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Perfect. I guess I won't be a jerk. Simon, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
Looking forward to chatting with Geri.
Absolutely. And
yeah,
Scotty,
how long has it been since our first conversation? Maybe.
Well, I think it was about a year ago.
A year ago. Yeah.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
It's a relationship that continues to blossom.
There we go. Yeah.
So, Scotty, what's going on? What's up in Utah today?
Other than just, I don't think it's uncommon for it to be as hot as it is, though it feels uncommonly hot to me. But otherwise, all good things. We're finally getting over the wildfire smoke from the Bay Area. So for everybody who's joining us in the Bay, I hope you guys are in more ways than one. I hope you're staying healthy and safe right now.
Perfect. Absolutely. So, believe it or not, it's not Treasurer sending out smoke signals saying, please, for the love of God, help me. I need help on my team.
Metaphorically, that might be what's going on, right? My.
For sure. So, Scotty, let's jump right into it. What do you have for Geri?
Excellent. All right, very good. So Geri, we've already said we appreciate you coming on. I want to reiterate that and just start off, speaking a little bit about your career as a practitioner. So you had a long and successful career as a Treasury practitioner, and looks like you even sat in the assistant treasurer seat at a couple of different companies. What are some of the highlights and things that you learned along the way as a practitioner?
Yeah, well, as I looked through the questions and started to sort of form my thoughts, this one made me smile because I'm old and I've been in Treasury a really long time. And so it kind of made me think of the good old days. And, gosh, there was a lot going on back then. I did, as you said, I was assistant treasurer, first at Oracle Corporation, and then with a couple of entities here in Colorado, United Launch Alliance, and then CH2M Hill. And I think some of the highlights for me was the challenges that all brought. I mean, so I grew up in Treasury. I started my very first job here in Denver for a company it was back then called US West, which turned into Media One and then was bought out. But I started in Treasury and I started doing foreign exchange. And I kind of knew immediately that was going to be pretty cool. And I've heard many of your people, talk about it on the podcast that you don't always plan to come into Treasury, but once you're there, it's kind of a cool place to be. So for me, as I said, went to Oracle to be the assistant treasurer, and that was a big job. We were a big corporation in, many countries of the world, and my job was global treasury. So I had teams in Buenos Aires, in Dublin, Ireland, and in Sydney. And so I spent a lot of time on the road. I had two young girls at the time. And so one of the things that I think about, twofold. I think about the fun memories that I was able to put together for my girls, because I'd grab one of them and take them with me from time to time and, hire a nanny to watch them while I was working, and then go to the Sydney Zoo or see the plays in London or do fun stuff like that. So those memories are really priceless, and my girls, still talk about that today. But from a work perspective, some of the highlights, I think I was really lucky to have exposure in these organizations to some really large and at the time kind of historical transactions. When I was with Media One, as I said, we were bought out by AT&T. So we had to sell off a big piece of our international business. And so that fell on me to pull that off. And that was a lot of work, but a whole lot of fun. And then going to Oracle, we did a secondary offering in Japan for Oracle Japan. And so that was a really big deal and a whole lot of fun. And then, over the course of my time there, I was there for Oracle's very first M&A transaction of PeopleSoft, which was kind of the first of many for them. But that was also a really cool transaction and very large at the time. So, as I look back, there's lots of those kinds of highlights where you say, we used to joke, I kind of got the hat trick where I did a really big one in 3 different places. And a lot of people get one in their career. So I feel very lucky.
It's one of those things as well that those big transactions, when you're in them, they're a lot of work and hard going, but you always look back fondly, right?
Exactly. I still have the lucite things from sitting here on my shelf from proof that I survived, but it was good. It was fun.
And Geri, what's the one thing that, I guess, having had a great career so far, what's the one thing you wish you'd been told when you started your career that you know now?
Well, I think there would be 2 things I would encourage people, wherever they are in this timeline of their career, was first, don't sit back and wait for things to happen to you. Get in and make them happen for you. There is some bit of luck in being in the right place at the right time, but a lot of the success of your own individual career has to do with your personal incentive and personal drive to learn new things and participate. So I would say, get in there and get it done. If you want to learn new things, raise your hand and ask to learn them, and don't be shy about it. And then the second thing I would say is trust yourself. I remember this one early on, really early on. I was that little junior FX person I described, and the treasurer invited me to join this meeting. I thought, this is going to be cool. So I go in the boardroom and I look around and realize very quickly I am the most junior person in the room, and most of the rest of them walked over from the C-suite. So I'm thinking, well, this will be cool. I'll get to see how these meetings go. So the meeting is going on, and then the treasurer says, so Geri, what do you think about blah, 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 the FX strategy we were talking about? He didn't tell me he was going to do that in the beginning. So I had to pull it together and, form words and thoughts and make good sense. And so I did it, and I did it, thoughtfully and carefully, and he praised me afterwards. But that was very much of an early lesson for me to trust yourself and do the work, do the hard work to understand and know what you're talking about, but then go and speak, and you're cool, you can do it.
And the third piece of advice, Geri, make sure your boss doesn't throw you under the bus.
Holy moly. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, no, yeah. Oh boy, that one still makes me shiver.
If you're going to attend a meeting, make sure you understand the expectations around your contributions, right?
Oh, I totally thought, that was really nice. I get to go to that meeting.
I think that what you say about owning your career, though, is really important as well, Geri, because I think a lot of people kind of expect that their boss or, HR or whoever has their best interests at heart. And I think the one thing that's come through my podcast a lot is people saying, no, you need to make sure that you own your career. And, if you want a promotion now and you don't get it, then move, make the move yourself and get it happening, because as much as they've got your interests at heart for the benefit of the business, they don't necessarily have your best interests at heart.
And that's a really good point. They have your best interests as long as it fits in with the big picture. And if you're on a succession plan and you're going to do certain things, but it only works if it works for the organization. And so sometimes people know this in their careers. Sometimes to get that promotion, to get that really next big leap, sometimes you have to go somewhere else, and don't be afraid of that, but go after it. Get what you want and keep going.
And also, Geri, I think the one thing for younger listeners out there is you're going to have speed humps. You might have had a great career so far, but you're going to get, in an organization, someone's going to come in that isn't, you know, your best boss ever, or that doesn't have your interests at heart, or you get made redundant because the business is in a place. Like, there's going to be speed humps.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we got the inopportune
the ever
Australian
dreaded
internet
frozen
issues.
screen. But you're right, Simon.
That's fine. It's not a problem to have
Sorry.
those. And in actual fact, you probably learn the most.
Well,
This has created an interesting situation.
Simon, I think you're right. I think what you were saying before you froze, you keep freezing, by the way. What you were saying is you are going to have speed bumps, and so one of the things that also is really good to learn early in your career is just because you make a path doesn't mean you get there in a linear fashion, right? It twists and turns and sometimes goes backwards and sometimes stops, but you know, learning to sort of keep the bigger goal in mind would serve our younger audience well.
love to hear that coming from you, Jerry. We did one of these several weeks ago now, where we talked about creating an outline as opposed to a plan for how your career should go. But coming from a practitioner and somebody you know, that has done it in this space, it always carries, you know, maybe a little more weight than if
It's real.
from the
Yeah.
three of us.
Yeah, no, great. Yeah, good job. It's good advice.
For sure. So being your own biggest cheerleader, raising your hand, jumping into challenges with both feet, and really trusting in yourself. How do you approach networking? I mean, are you taking that same mentality toward your networking efforts throughout your career? Or if not, what advice would you give to people who maybe aren't the best at networking? Well,
none of us are born to network, right? And so it's a bit like riding the bike, right? The more you practice, the better you get. And so I've always felt like networking was critical. And I did learn that early in this way, sort of to what I was describing. I had the opportunity to be involved in different things that, had given the personal choice, would have felt too scary for me to like say, hey, can I go to that board meeting and not say anything? And, you know, so in my career, I had the really great fortune of having some good mentors. I was at a time when there were fewer senior level women. My mentors were men, and I still joke about this. They took more of the tough love approach to teaching, like the one I just talked about. And so I had to, you know, and that's fine. I'm cool. I can deal with that. But those are the examples of how it is important to learn to network with no matter what the audience is. And sometimes you network laterally, and that you go to social hour with your local organization and you know, swap business cards and whatnot. But it's also really important to network up the ladder for the reasons, Joe, that you just described, so that you can sort of be the cheerleader when you need to be visible, be knowledgeable, be helpful. And like I said, the more you do it, the better you get. But I just think these days networking is a must for you to be able to understand. Like we know we have examples just this last couple weeks or last week of where networking has helped parties come together for mutual benefit.
Well, and obviously, you know, you believe in networking quite a bit. By the way, I have a 3-year-old who might be a case study in at least one person who was born to network. You can't pass a stranger without striking up a conversation. But so no, I mean, you made the transition from being a practitioner to peer-to-peer networking. So what caused that change or struck that idea for you? And also what kind of skills did you learn as a practitioner that you took to this venture? Yeah,
well, as I was talking earlier, I had a linear path. I didn't have an outline. And so back in 2005, life happened to me and forced me to have to step away from the corporate world to deal with some personal family issues that I was having. So had that not occurred, I would have been on a different path. but I needed more flexibility. I needed time. So I resigned from Oracle and moved back to Colorado to take some time for those issues. During that time, I had the opportunity to be introduced to peer networking. And I had participated on the other side as a practitioner in those kinds of networks. And so now I was having the opportunity to come on the other side of the table. And so I knew, obviously, just by what we just described in our previous question, the importance of networking. And so this opportunity was perfect for me at that time. I needed flexibility, but it kept my head in the game and helped me, understand what was happening still in the world of Treasury while I was away. And I also, had the good fortune of being able to bring all of my corporate history with me and work with and talk to these treasurers. I was reporting to the treasurers for much of that time prior to that. So now helping those treasurers and assistant treasurers solve their problems. Like, I knew the language, I knew the challenge, I knew the panic in trying to execute those Japanese yen trades at a certain rate, and whatever it was, whatever. So, for me, it was the perfect mix of helping me to stay engaged. Then once as time went on, it just was clear that was the best place. I enjoy understanding and helping solve the problems without those sleepless nights.
Yeah, and it's you're able to connect with people on a different level when you've sat in the same seat or you've been in their shoes before. And like you said, with the midnight trades, having to worry about your hedging strategy and everything that's going on, it's a different level than if me, Scotty, or Simon are trying to get to know someone.
It's true. And to that point, another thing, about the benefits of networking, and back to the highlights of my career, you go through those transactions with that core team, and you really do start to develop some real friendships, and that have stayed valuable to me to this day, even after all that time.
Yeah, I know, even with my own personal network, a couple of individuals that are very close friends of mine are people that I had met throughout my travels, quote unquote, the people in the foxhole next to you. We were going through the same things, you're solving problems together, and I still bounce ideas off of them today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So not only did you make that jump over to peer-to-peer networking, you're at a very well-known group in the Treasury space. You decided to take it a step further and venture out on your own with a couple of partners who I've gotten to know. Absolutely lovely people. It's just every conversation and interaction that we have with your group it's just more and more. I get it. I get why, each of you have made that transition, and it seems to be working out very successfully. But since taking that entrepreneurial leap, what have you realized with your partners? What have you learned along the way?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for that. I'll let my partners know. But we decided, that it was time, and for me, it was about kind of being true to myself. I learned a while back too that I have very much of an entrepreneurial spirit, and so it was the opportunity presented itself. The three of us have, really long histories and lots of corporate experience. And so forming Lean Up was a challenge, right? For me, if you want it done, put it on a list and call it a challenge. And then I'm going to go do it. And so that's what it was with Lean Up. But I think, I always knew sort of through my life that it would be cool to have my own business and, have flexibility and whatnot. And y'all know that because you're sitting, in a similar space, that sometimes the flexibility isn't all it's cracked up to be. But I wouldn't give it up. I would not give it up. We're 2 years into this. And gosh, the first year we dealt with growing a new business and wildfires in California and this and that and the other. And then COVID struck, and, here we are. But I think, what I learned as an entrepreneur, I already knew as a successful corporate. And it's about tenacity, perseverance, pivoting when there's a problem. Number one, identifying and admitting there's a problem, and then pivoting to a solution. So, entrepreneurship for me is just really kind of where my heart is.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier fully trusting in yourself and taking that leap. What was the biggest fear that you had to overcome, I guess, making that transition?
Success, paychecks. but you don't know until you try. And if you put that sort of lay out that objective and know that you have this much runway to build a successful business, and if you run out of runway, you got to come up with another plan. That sort of helps direct people and point you in the right direction. And so I'm very happy and wouldn't give it up. Every day brings something new. But as I said, in this COVID environment, we're all dealing with things we never thought we would. We were on a treasurer call this morning, and one of the treasurers was saying, oh, they did so good. They had a business continuity plan called pandemic. And they went through it last October. Just, how lucky was that they picked the pandemic one. But she said, none of what was in there had anything to do with economic lockdown, work from home for 6 months, all of that stuff. So, we kind of giggled about that. But the moral of the story is that you just don't know what these outliers are. And so you can't. One other thing that I learned early in my career was don't wait till it's 100% planned. If you have 80%, man, just go and you'll figure out the rest along the way.
Absolutely, Geri. I think that just to pick up on your first point there, having your own business, I think, and flexibility are mutually exclusive. I don't think I've ever worked as hard in my life over the last 9 years as having my own business. It's a lot of fun at the same time, and I love it. So don't get me wrong, but flexibility is probably not the one thing that comes to mind when you talk about entrepreneurial, having your own business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a different flexibility. Like I might be able to sneak away for 3 hours in the middle of the day, but I might be up at 3 o'clock in the morning doing something. So from that perspective, I guess you get a little bit of a, different outlook or different choice and when the work gets done.
Yeah, I totally agree. I work super hard, but I have plenty of time with the kids and family. And go on holidays and all the rest of it, but you still get the work done when it needs to be done. So I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, Geri, tell us a little bit then. In terms of Lean Up, I was new to after when we spoke a year ago. I'd never heard of peer-to-peer networking. Talk us through what it is and how Lean Up really will help the Treasury folk out there.
Yeah, as I talked about earlier, being a practitioner, what happened way more than a handful or dozen times in my career was there were things that we were working on, questions that we had, where the senior executives would say, what's company XYZ doing? What's company ABC doing? How are they handling this? What about our travel policy? Who does what in that space? Whatever it was. And so we were very often having, a little core group of your favorites where you'd call up and say, what are you doing? How did you do that? But from the peer-to-peer networking standpoint, it is taking that and making it bigger and more valuable. So at Lean Up, our tagline is where business meets to succeed. And so for us, it's about taking on all the responsibility and all the details of pulling together the best of the best. Those Treasury professionals who join our network come together either pre-COVID in person or during COVID via Zoom to do what I just talked about in a much more efficient manner with many more practitioners. You can take this on your own and say, I got people, I can call them. But you'll be on the phone all day long and you'll be lucky if you get 2 answers. So that's what we solve is we take all that administrative and tactical noise out of the picture and bring together these professionals. So like I said, today we were on the treasurer call and we talked a lot about, what financings were people seeing and what were banks doing in the current credit markets or not doing, and did the CP market recover, and all those things that are really common and important to Treasury executives. They can come join us, like I said, on the calls or in person and find out from 15 people what they're doing on a certain issue.
So to some degree, it's kind of formalizing that networking piece of your own network and being able to ask questions. And no doubt, talking about things that everyone has a problem themselves and doesn't realize everyone else has the same problem. And it brings all of those ideas into one forum that then allows you to share ideas and get the answers.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then also from an individual standpoint, it's as we talked earlier on, sort of taking on the responsibility of your own career, of your own learning, and of your own networking. They come to the events, and there's always sidebar conversations, or 2 or 3 that want to talk about something other than what was maybe on the agenda. But everybody is walking away with some combination of a problem that they solved or bringing the answer back to for their corporation, but also a self-learning, something that they learned and that is making them better as a Treasury professional. Because at the end of the day, you do this to advance your career, right? And so the more you learn, the more exposure you get, the better you are, and the more prepared you will most likely be for that next opportunity, which is where you come in, right?
So for those out there that are thinking about this, Geri, it is invitation only. So it's one of those, you try and put people that can help each other together, and the group fit is got to be right. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. What we do is we take a look at, like I said, sorry, my headphone is falling off, trying to make sure that we have a good match of our communities. And a match would mean that your job responsibility or the size or breadth of your company's footprint is similar to those in the room, so that it's a give and take. What we want is when people come to these calls or these in-person meetings, it's a give and take. It's not a sit in the back of the room and take a bunch of notes and go home. So we do some vetting up front to make sure that it's a good fit, and then also that we don't have any competitive issues, because we want, when they join us, they agree to a standard set of principles, and one which includes confidentiality. So, what we say on the calls or in the room stays there. So we just want everyone to feel, comfortable and open.
So really, it's an opportunity for people to get out there, meet like-minded people, discuss issues that everyone has, and really make sure that the community as a whole, from a Treasury perspective, is benefiting.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yep, and they're picking up their own learnings and advancing their career along the way.
Right. So if I'm a practitioner who likes what I'm hearing right now, how do I go about learning more about LeanUp? What does that application process look like? How do I go about contacting you?
Yeah, well, you can contact me. You can find me on LinkedIn, send me a message that way, or you can go to our website, which is leanupward.com, and you can find our contact information there. But you just reach out. We will reach out, to you and figure out, where you are. We have a number of communities, ranging from those at the Treasury Manager level up through the treasurer level. So depending on where you are in your career cycle, we can have a conversation about where you fit the best.
Perfect. And what I'll do for the listeners is I'll make sure that I post a link to your LinkedIn profile in the comments here, and then also the website link to LeanUp. So we'll that way they're able to check you out on their own, and if you're open to answering questions and connecting with people, then that's an excellent resource.
We're absolutely open. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys today. I think, what I've seen you guys doing on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube is really great in advancing. And, Scotty, as you said, giving the guidance, like have an outline, not a linear roadmap, and those kinds of things. Those are all really great teachings, and I think you guys are doing a great job.
And Geri, just for those out there listening, they can come along and just test the group, can't they? Like the first meeting is one where they just get to come along and see if it's the right fit for them. So you don't have to sign up on day one. You can actually go along and get a feel for things.
Yes, you absolutely can. Once we sort of agree and vet you through the process and figure out which community is best for you, we will invite you to join us for a free peek, because we want you to be comfortable with moving forward as a paid member.
Looks like we don't have any comments or questions from the audience here, so I think that about wraps it up for today. Geri, thank you so much again for your time and for walking us through your career and just the value that you've gotten from networking and relationships, and of course the overview of LeanUp. We've talked about, we've been communicating over the last couple of weeks, couple of months. Just a great group of people. It's as a practitioner, if I'm sitting in a practitioner's seat, I'm absolutely getting a hold of you to figure out what I can learn from you guys and what I can bring to the table, because it's a really cool setup that you have.
Well, we really enjoy what we do, and our passion for Treasury kind of follows us every day. So again, I appreciate the time here, and look forward to catching up again soon.
Thanks, and Treasury Talent community, thanks again for joining us. We will be on next week, same time, same place as always. Have a great week. We'll see you then. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.